No, he is graphic designer friend. We came up with the idea though.
Oh, okay.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Retroactive Trio podcast. Last week we talked about modifying our systems, pro and con. Now we're going to be talking about what are the pro and cons of emulation and ROMs. I don't know where everybody else stands on this. As someone who supports physical media, I definitely love holding a cartridge versus booting up a ROM, but I also own ROMs, so let's see what you guys all think on tonight's episode. With me, as always, is
Retro Ryan.
And with us tonight is our awesome guest.
What's up, guys? It's Quesadilla Padilla.
And I am always your patient zero, Zombie JLT1. So let's go ahead and jump into tonight's topic because I am eager to hear what you guys all have to say about this. We all know that a majority of us use various devices to play our games unless you actually run OG hardware, which I have been not doing lately due to the horrendous amount of items in my gaming room, but I'm going to be going back to hopefully using my OG consoles. But I gotta say, I have been enjoying the RetroPie that Quesadilla has sent me. So I gotta say that there are definitely pro and cons to both. But
you're very welcome.
let's hear what you guys have to say. So let's go ahead and start it off with, okay, I'm a purist. I like holding physical media. What would you guys say are the pros to emulation?
Well, I mean, for me,
one of the pros. Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
No, you start, brother. You're our guest.
Okay. So for me, the most obvious is it's cost efficient. I mean, with the price of some of these games nowadays, it's easier to just get like a RetroPie or even emulate on an old PC versus paying an absorbent amount of money for just one game. You know, that's one of the biggest pros to me.
So right off the
Yeah,
bat,
I'm sorry, Zom. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say right off the bat, we've got price. Okay, I'm definitely for that as somebody who has collected physical media
Yes.
over the years and have seen those horrendous price spikes. I definitely would agree with that. Ryan, your thoughts?
So the way I approached retro gaming was basically I wanted to get all the carts that I had as a kid that I liked. Okay, so I did skip some I hated. Dick Tracy, among others. We went over that in another podcast. I won't go into it. But so I wanted to get back the ones I loved as a kid. I wanted to get the ones I wished I had as a kid. For the rest of the games, you can't have everything, right? So
Right.
I got EverDrives for that. And then I eventually got the Pi to kind of fill in the gaps of the consoles I didn't have. So that's the way I approached it, because who can afford the price of like a little Samson? Who can afford, Mighty Final Fight these days or Panic Restaurant? So games like that, you want an EverDrive or a Pi to save you that money. But it's also like, for me, it's about trying games too. So try before you buy. You can go through the library and figure out, if you do still want to get them on cart, which ones are going to be the smart purchase. Are you not going to regret buying through emulation and EverDrives?
So
Yeah, definitely.
so accessibility number two.
I go ahead.
I'm just gonna say I'm listing all the pros that you guys are throwing at me, because I want to approach this honestly, as if, last week I was the system purist. I never wanted to modify anything. Now I am the physical media purist. So I want you guys to sell this to me. Sell our audience why emulation is either the best alternative or one of the best. That's what I want to hear when it comes to this conversation. So far, I've heard the accessibility, which I agree with, and of course the price point. Now, when we think about emulation,
Well,
how far back do you guys go with the subject?
so my first when I first tested the waters on emulation was back in, I would say, 2007, 2008, when the Wii got hacked. You know, I went over a friend's house and I saw him playing Super Mario Brothers on a Wii controller, and I'm like, it just blew my mind. I'm like, wow, how did you do this? You know, and it from there it just opened up my world, and I've been on it ever since. I mean, I do have original hardware, but having the ability to have a full uh, library, at your fingertips, at even at times in your pocket. So let's say, for example, let's say if you have a Game Boy Advance and you have a Game Boy Advance EverDrive,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to lug around with hundreds of cartridges um, when you can just play them straight off of your EverDrive. You know, um, that's a big plus. Plus, another one, if you are a person who does collect video games, you're able to test them out on emulation before you even buy them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could test the game out, see if you like it, and then you can see whether or not if you want to invest that $100 or $200 investment on the game.
So it sounds like what you guys have been saying, both here in our studio, so to say, and in chat, is this sort of like, try it before you buy it mentality, which I will admit I miss in today's gaming. We all know what it was like to rent stuff over the weekends and have that game for a couple of days, or back when, if you're old enough to remember this, when you could buy a game, you take it home, you play it, you realize it sucked, and then you could take it back and just say, I want a refund because I didn't like the game. And they used to do that. So
Right.
when I think about emulation, I think about when I first got to, well, I won't even say college, when I was in high school and we would play Pokemon Green on a 3.5-inch floppy, install an emulator to our school computer and play that in between classes. Then I get to college and I meet all these dudes who have like these supercomputers and they're able to access my entire collection on their desktops, which blew me the hell away because I didn't know at the time that emulation was becoming
Exactly.
a huge thing like that. So I got to admit, it was insane to be able to play a lot of the
Yeah.
games that I didn't or haven't played in so long. So I definitely would agree with that too.
So let me hit you with one we haven't talked about yet. It's 2 words.
Yes.
Rom hacks.
Yes.
Great way to play Rom hacks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Edwin, can you describe to everyone? I'm sure they know, but
Another one is a lot of these games get translated, you know,
yes,
Mm-hmm.
and some of these get translated by fans, you know. Um, Another big one that we haven't really touched on is being able to play them in HD without any extra equipment.
Right.
You know,
the
like
adapters are expensive, man. The retro sync, the HD retrovision, all those cables. There's no
yes,
cheap way to upconvert. No really cheap way to do it. Except this.
no, I mean, I've invested in HD. I mean, they're the RetroSync 5X, and I have the HD RetroVision cables. But again, having the ability to just plug in one little console and have not just one console, have a library of 30 consoles on there. I mean, it's amazing. Another one is that the portability of it as well. I can just take a RetroPie with me on a trip versus taking a Super Nintendo, a Nintendo, and a Genesis. You know?
I gotta say that chat is booming tonight with a lot of good points of view on the said subject. I've been highlighting a bunch of these, and it also seems to come down to the rarity in these of some of these games, and of course the Japanese games we never got translations for or even brought over to the States. Um, DLP, for example, mentions a title that I still wish I had to this day, and that's Snatcher on Sega CD, which we all know is a hugely expensive title nowadays. And I may have seen that in the wild maybe once, twice, ever. And back then, I didn't want to pay the price for what it was because it was way out of my price budget. Now that I have a job, I still can't afford it. So, what does that tell you about our damn market nowadays? It kind of sucks. Gonna highlight my hermano's comment one more time here. ROM hacks are love letters from fans that enjoy the OG game that they improved the game in order to enjoy it more. I would agree. I would agree. I think some of the ROM hacks out there are kind of ridiculous, like some of the Pokemon ROM hacks I've come across in recent years, but a lot of them do add to the playability. They up the quality somehow, and it fascinates me that most of these guys who are doing these ROM hacks are just ordinary Joes. They know how to code, they know how to change stuff. That I find highly impressive.
Yeah, I
And
mean, there's still a Tecmo Bowl league going on to this day. You know, they modify the roster on a yearly basis, and it's amazing what these
mhm.
guys do.
Now it's also been brought up the mini consoles. You know, back when the mini consoles were the rage a year or two ago or a couple years ago. Um, Great ways to play games that were emulated, and of course it was only a matter of time before people hacked those as well. What are your guys' stances on the mini consoles we have so far? What do you think? Are they good? Are they bad? Could they have been improved? Do you think they could have done a lot more with them? What are your guys' thoughts on those?
To me, I prefer EverDrives and Pies. There's nothing wrong with the mini consoles. I get that, and I get that you can put the full libraries on there. I mean, on the most part, you can almost fit the full libraries, right? In some cases, but you know, it just didn't appeal to me because of EverDrives and Pies. Say there wasn't the option of an EverDrive and a Pi, I would go there, but it's a little bit, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers love the minis, and they come in a cool box. It's just what turned me off was the libraries included, right?
Right.
So that had they have had amazing libraries to begin with a lot of the licensed games that we love, there'd be a different story. But we got a mixed bag of great first party titles and some forgettable fillers. Let's be honest with what it was, the selection. So you were forced to and at that price point, what they were going for, especially on the used market, they were going for what, 100, 200 sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
They were hard to find. So I was just like, screw all this hunting down for these minis. I'm fine with my Pi. I'm fine with my EverDrives, man. But that's me. That's just me. It don't mean I'm
Yeah,
right.
I don't I I don't mind the minis. I mean, they're an official as a collector. They're an official Nintendo product, so that's a plus. I hated the length of the cords on them.
Right.
Um, I hated the fact that the first model only came with one controller, and the second controller was impossible to find at the beginning. Um, I do like that they added like the save states
Mm-hmm.
on, because you got to remember some of these games you didn't have save states on some of these games. They added save states. They added the fast forward and rewind, so you could fast forward through some dialogues that you couldn't skip. You know what I mean?
Right.
In some games. Uh, but yeah, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind them. I mean, the fact that you could hack them was a plus to me.
Right.
Save states are so important to some
But
games.
I definitely go. I definitely go over a Pi versus the Mini, but just because of the fact of on the Mini I can just play that console specifically,
Mm-hmm.
versus on the Pi I could play anything from Atari all the way up to Saturn in some cases.
Right. So
Yeah,
would you?
and I mean, save states are so important. Think how many games that you couldn't finish as a kid. I mean, they're brutally hard. That's why there's the phrase NES hard, right? So many of those games they give you a limited amount of only a few continues, only a few lives. Without a save state, some of those you're not going to beat. And it allows you to practice and get farther than maybe you could have. without it, you know?
So would you say the minis are just
I mean,
are just
on on
Raspberry Pis
on
in a
some on
glorified shell?
well, in one case, they dropped the ball completely. In the case of the PlayStation Mini, I mean, they totally dropped the ball on that. What they ended up doing was they ended up putting PAL ROMs on there, so they ran super slow. Um, they were sluggish, and these things, when they first initially came out, they were going for 100, and
Mm-hmm.
then within like a couple of weeks, you could find them as cheap as $20.
Hell, they were giving them away
But
at one point.
now with the modding scene, yes. But now with the modding scene, I mean, the PS Classic it's a pretty good modding console. I mean, emulation console. It's a pretty good emulation console.
So based on your perspective and your knowledge base, why do you think Sony made that move to use PAL ROMs instead of American or Japanese ROMs?
I have no clues on me. I just believe that it was rushed. I believe that they saw that Nintendo was making the NES Mini and SNES Mini, and they saw the buzz that they got from it, and they just rushed it to the market, and it
Mm-hmm.
was just a huge flop, huge flop.
Because let's go back to
Maybe they didn't do any quality assurance, but there was no way that they tested that and they said, "Oh yeah, let's put it out." There's no way.
mm-hmm.
I mean, the packaging is beautiful. The fact that it came with two controllers, a plus, but they dropped the ball completely.
Because let's look at the first mini that was released. That was a huge freaking success. The market is smaller
Yes.
because the system wasn't as widely available as everybody thought it was going to be. YouTubers were making videos on it. And then it's gone for like what, a year or two or so. Um, then the NES Classic comes back. Then collectors start to make that artificial market where looking for the Nintendo Gold seal of approval based on where it is on the front cover of the box means it's an earlier release, so therefore it's worth more. Then we get the SNES Classic, a step up from the NES Classic, and then right around that time we get the Genesis Classic, which was probably considered the best one at that point because of the software, because there seemed to be
Yes.
less lag on the Genesis Classic. Just everything about it was on par with what the market was expecting. And then in between, you had those others, the TCG Mini, the PC Engine Mini, Commodore 64 Mini. So all of a sudden, the market is starting to get saturated with all these different
Yes.
versions. Much like the plug and plays of
Geo
yesteryear.
Mini.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So then we get to the PlayStation Mini, and it's probably the worst one out there. And for the life of me, I can't even
Uh,
fathom why they would want to rush that project when they should have thought about, okay, what should we put on here? How should we run it? And then, just flood it with the PAL versions, and nobody's buying them all of a sudden.
The other reason I don't like the minis is because I have limited space in my game room. I have limited, even though they're small. Okay, yeah, they're small, but guess what? We don't have unlimited HDMI inputs on our TV, and even when you get HDMI switchers, you don't have unlimited inputs on those. And I already have, like on my system, I'm running like an Xbox One, a PS4, a Wii U. I'm stripping it down to as little as I can, but as many options as I can. So for a Pi to give me all those minis in one system, in one HDMI out, that is, you can't put a price on that. You know, to save the space, to save the HDMI inputs. I know that's an issue for everybody here. I know you guys don't have unlimited HDMI inputs, and I know you don't have unlimited space. And if you're going to have every mini hooked up, you're going to be wasting a lot of space, and you're going to be wasting a lot of HDMI inputs.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I'm just entering, just like feel that.
Now, Lit here is mentioning that the Genesis and the TG16, in his opinion, are the best. While the game selections may be debatable, the systems do a good job of emulation. Based on your guys' experience with any of the minis, what would you say to those interested in buying these minis? What recommendations would you make? Like, which ones technically and game selection wise appeal to you the most, if any?
Ryan.
I mean, for me, I'm just going to say I like the Neo Geo Mini, and I know nobody else does. I like it because I was always a Neo Geo fanboy. That's a hard system to, obviously collect for. Each card is like what, $100, $200, if not more. Mm-hmm. I think it's cool. It's a little tiny hand, like basically in an arcade tabletop, very small but big enough to play. You got a little screen on there, and it also does HDMI out on there. It's a little, some people would say it's a little gimmicky. Some people might have preferred it in like a console box, but they put it, you kind of get both in that, in the little arcade, little tiny bar top. I like that, and I'm saying that because I think it's a little underrated. I think a lot of people shitting on it. I like that one, the Neo Geo Mini, but I'm also a Neo Geo fanboy. And you can get the original style controller for it. It might not have clicky sticks, as somebody, Metal Jesus didn't like that. There's no clicky sticks in it. But it's still cool. It's got ton of the library in there. You can do HDMI out on that to your TV, or just play it on its own, just, with the joystick and buttons on it. So I like that mini console, and nobody else does. So I'm putting my love in for that one.
I would have loved to have gotten my hands on one of the Neo Geo Minis if I could have, or like Lit Gaming mentioned, the Neo Geo Gold X, but I was never in a position to get my hands on one, which sucks because I would argue that would be the way to go for sure if you could get a Neo Geo console that wasn't the original.
They also made an arcade stick, which was like a where you could plug to the TV, which included, I believe, 40 games, either 20 or 40 games.
So we've been talking about the minis and kind of touched upon running emulation through PCs, gaming laptops, that kind of thing. Last week's episode, we talked about some of the famous websites that we would pull ROMs from and whatnot. So let's bring it back to the RetroPies and what are some other pieces of technology we can add to that?
Well, I just want to thank Edwin first for getting me into the Pi images. And, the Damaso one that I've been streaming on for like a year and a half, 2 years, he found that one first and inspired me to add to the library to that. So I ended up adding, finding 60 extra Dreamcast games to throw on there, and we were all sharing them throughout our friends. And, taking an already awesome image that has a library of all these great emulators and games and making it even better is a super fun thing to do. And I want to thank Edwin for that. for finding those great images and turning me on to that whole scene through Arcade Punks.
You're welcome. Well, you don't necessarily have to have a Raspberry Pi. Let's say you don't have the funds for a Pi, because let's be honest with you. I mean, Pies are difficult to find nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
They're going upwards to 150, $200. So it's insane.
And why is that?
I believe there's like because of the chip shortage,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. And from what I've read, they're trying their best, but they're trying to keep up with supply and demand. And it just sucks that Scalper sucks. But going back to what I was saying, you don't necessarily have to have a Pi. You can even have something as simple as an Android phone, a tablet. You can download an app. You can go to the Google Play Store and you can download an app, and through you can load ROMs. You can download ROMs from the tablet or from your phone, and you can get an OTG cable, which is called on-the-go cable. You just plug that into your tablet or to your phone, and plug in a USB controller, map the buttons out, and have at it. No,
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily have to have a Pi. You know, that's why I love emulation. I mean, Android is the best in my opinion. That's why I don't really mess with Apple as much. Um, but yeah, I'm sorry. That was just my point.
So, what are the advantages of running ROMs off these various devices? We kind of talked about it last week's episode, but let's get a little bit more in depth with the technical aspects. I'm trying to get one of your live streams where you streamed a little bit um, on your Retro Pi, so we kind of have like a reference point. But
Okay.
what would you say are the pro and con of each device, and where would we see more of the technical issues versus anything else really?
So, the Pi can be a bit intimidating to people, you know, um, because first of all, um, i- if you don't, if you don't have like basic computer skills on downloading certain things, you have to download a program called Win32 Disk Imager. You also have to have a SD card formatter, um, and you have to be able to download torrents. So as long as you know those three simple basic things, oh, and at times you may need like seven zip or a WinRAR, for an example. As long as you have those things, then you're all set. But you could buy a preloaded set made for you, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the thing is that, again, the retro, the Pi can be intimidating. You know, there's certain things that if you hit certain buttons, certain things pop up. You know, like you may if you hit um a certain button combinations, um you may get a retro art menu, you know, where
Yeah.
you have to change where you're going to change certain stuff. You know, people get freaked out on things like that. You know,
But if you're not limited by budget, if you got say you got like 150 to spend, which is maybe a little more than most people want to spend, but say you got 150, you can buy one right off eBay that's just going to be fully loaded. They're gonna have built the Pi with the fan, hook everything up. It's gonna come with the charger. It's gonna have the SD card that's already loaded with an image. They will set all that up.
It'll be a plug and play.
Yeah.
Just like I sent Zombie, just like something like that. Plug and play.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Now, I know for a fact, like, hotkeys are a huge problem. You know, if you're a person who's like fidgety, um, and you hit certain button combinations, you know, you may reset your game. You know, and
Guilty.
I know that you've gone through. I know that you've gone through that, Zombie. You know, you've gotten really, really far in a game, and you accidentally. You know,
Guilty AF, man. And very recently too, for those of you who were there late at night, I'm not, saying this to throw him under the bus in any way, but if you were there for Freak of Four's first run at Zelda 2, poor guy, he did that twice himself. Did the whole select start combination, and I'm like, man, I can relate to that.
yeah, it sucks. It sucks. You know. So, as far as I would say those are the bigger differences in my opinion. The minis, they're more like straightforward, and um, you won't be able to run into any issues. But with the Pi, you may encounter some issues. You know, um, one of the biggest problems is that you may get a ROM that doesn't work.
Yeah.
On these minis, these ROMs, you know, they're certified. You know, they're working. You know, unless you hack it and you put a ROM that doesn't work on there.
So here we're looking at your Link to the Past playthrough, and this is the Pi, like you mentioned in the title. What
Yes.
sort of advantages and disadvantages do you have with using a retro Pi, or does it really lie in what version of it that you would experience problems?
So there's different versions of Pis, and you can start to run on having issues when you start to run certain games or certain consoles on certain Pis. Like I would give you an example. So the most basic Pi out there, it's called the Pi Zero. You know, that Pi can run anything from Atari, I would say, up to like Neo Geo. You know, but it struggles to play N64. It struggles to play PlayStation 1. It struggles to play even arcade games.
Right.
You know? So then you run into into the Pi 3, where you can do all of the above, but it still struggles to run the N64, you know? And then you have a little step up, which is the Pi 4, where the N64 still struggles, but now you're charting into other territory where you're running into Dreamcast and Saturn, you know? So those are the differences as far as like the retro Pis.
So I just want to give one thing about tablets. So you mentioned that before. What's good about a tablet is you get a nice 9 to 10 inch screen. It's portable. Like for somebody like me, it's on the job. You know, you go to work, you can play it. It's got a bigger screen than a handheld. You can kind of rest it. Get your tablet in a foldable case that will stand up nicely at the right angle. Hook in a controller to it. Usually it's USB Mini C or whatever they call that now, the smaller
Yes.
connection. And so many of the tablets are extremely affordable now. Like the Kindle Fire 8, okay? You would think that's not good for emulation, but if you mod it, which is a simple mod, you can get Google Play Store in there, which I have running. It's a $50 tablet, Kindle Fire 8. Anybody can afford that at $50. And then you throw on all the emulators from the Google Play Store after you do that simple mod. And it's like I said, that's on the go emulation powerhouse for $50 right out the door.
Definitely. I agree with you, Ryan.
So a tablet has the capability of a RetroPie, basically.
Well, not necessarily. It's limited to what consoles it can run.
Yeah, it falls short on.
You're not gonna be able to. Now, when it comes to 8-bit games, Zombie, you can run that like on a toaster. You know,
Yeah.
those will run on a toaster. I bet, honestly. Now even 16-bit. Now it's when you start to go into the upper stuff, into the 3264s and the 128s. That's when you start to run into difficulty on the limitation of your hardware.
Well, on this Kindle Fire 8, Edwin, the only thing it can't do is basically Dreamcast and N64. Obviously, it can't even come close to doing PS2. It can run a lot of PS1. It can run most of the MAME library. I haven't had problems with any MAME arcade ROMs. So it can run kind of the gamut. So what is this Fire 8? I mean, how many systems are we talking here? Let me run through as many as I can think it runs. NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, TurboGrafx, even Sega CD. It's been running fine. PS1. Like I said, the biggest ones that it can't do is what the Pi 4 can do. Can't do Dreamcast, can't do N64, and that's going to be a bummer for some people. But hey, those require a lot of CPU power.
They do.
For those.
They do. And a lot of those emulators out there for them are still experimental. Like we went from running games on Raycast or Recast. Now we run them on Redream, I believe, and they run a lot better for the Dreamcast. So they're constantly coming up with new emulators and stuff like that. I mean, and it's amazing that these guys do it for free too.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most amazing part to me.
So here we are with the RetroPie. Where do we go from there? Do we go into the Retro Tink? Do we go into the Mister? Where does the emulation boom take us at this point in gaming history?
So the Retro Tink is it's basically an upscaler.
Mm-hmm.
Think of a Retro Tink as a FrameMeister. They don't make the FrameMeisters anymore, so they're really hard to find. That's essentially RetroTink took its place. Now the Mister, I don't have one. Hector the Game Collector has one, but from what I've seen, like on YouTube videos and stuff like that, that's not emulation. I I I believe it's called FPGA. Hector might be able to tell us a little bit more about that. I have no clue whatsoever when
Well,
it comes to
from what I heard from what BFG, how he explained it in Hector, it uses the same chips as you'd find in a lot of those arcade machines. So it doesn't need to emulate a lot of the hardware. What the Pi is doing is emulating a lot of the hardware. So this
Yeah,
is doing it so like it would be like if you're running it on the actual arcades, these games, because it has the same chips in it. It's not emulating the hardware. So it's more
Yeah,
pure. It's more uh, what you would expect from the original, the original machines. You know.
yeah. Um, Speaking of hardware, one of the cons of a retro Pi or even any type of emulation that you're doing is not being able to play a certain console with that specific controller. It feels awkward at times playing a, Sega Genesis game with a Super Nintendo controller
Right.
or
Yeah.
vice versa. You know, it just feels weird. You know, you can't, and sometimes you can't map out the buttons the way that you want it. You know, so the gaming experience, it might throw you off. You know, because buttons aren't where they're supposed to be. Um, that,
I can
that's a,
give you a
that's
couple. I can give you a couple other cons. You sometimes get screen tearing on the Pi
you
during a
do.
game. It'll intermittently screen tear sometimes. Sometimes it'll freeze when you're going through these menu layouts, and a lot of the times, like say you got video snaps running. Video snaps, for those who don't know, it's a short preview, 5 to 10 second clip usually of what the game is. You're scrolling through all these beautiful menus and layouts. Sometimes it'll freeze up on that,
Yeah.
and you'll just have to restart your Pi. It happens to me every once in a while, and I got to restart the Pi on my stream. Luckily, I'm able to restart it and not lose the whole stream, and it boots right back up. But it does happen. It is possible. You got to make sure if you overclock the Pis to play a lot of the systems like Dreamcast, on the Dreamcast, you kind of need to overclock it basically to make it run better, because it is a high performance system. And to do that, it does get hot, so you got to make sure you got a good fan in there to cool it. You
Yeah,
know.
which again leads to what I was saying, that it can be a little bit intimidating to people, you know. The pie can be a little bit intimidating, you know.
So
But
what about the I'm going to call into question the Stream Deck, which is being talked about in the chat right now. What are your
uh,
thoughts on that? Where does that stand in terms of revolutionizing gameplay and whatnot?
I had one and I canceled, and I'm kicking myself in the ass. Well, I had one pre-ordered and I canceled it. Um, but man, I heard that thing goes all the way up to like GameCube. You know, it's imagine being able to play GameCube on the go. What the fuck? Uh, what's the price on that nowadays? Do you have any idea, Zombie?
Is it 300?
Actually, let me look that up.
I think it's 3 or 400.
Well, see, here's the thing. I the reason why I'm kicking myself in the ass because I saw the Stream Deck and I was like, I did the pre-order, but then I wanted to do the other pre-order for the and the analog pocket, which I never got, by the way. And so I canceled that one, and I never ended up getting the analog pocket either. Which I believe the analog pocket is FPGA.
Yeah, I got to admit that looked pretty impressive. I've seen some reviews on it so far.
Yeah.
Okay, according to the website, the Steam Decks go anywhere from 400 to 529 to 650.
Wow.
Whoa. That's a hefty price.
Yeah.
And I believe because there's two models, I believe there's like a 64 gig and a 128, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there's let's see, the $399 price tag goes to the 64 gig. The next is
Yeah.
the 256, and then the 512.
Yeah, I had pre-ordered the 64. Fuck, man. Shit. But yeah, I'm sorry, Zombie. On that, I know very little of it. I mean, I honestly, when it comes to emulation, aside from EverDrives and my RetroPies, I've that's that's pretty much my forte right there.
Let
Um,
let's bring it back to
I think
EverDrives.
I have to thank Nintendo though, because they actually introduced me to the RetroPie through their scarcity of the NES Mini, you know, because
So
when the
let's.
NES,
Uh,
um,
Jesse's talking about EverDrives. Now, I want to clarify one thing about EverDrives. All right, let's make this crystal clear. EverDrives do not use emulation. No matter what you may have read, they do not use emulation because they have the chips in them that are in the carts. So you know how like F-Zero had the what did you call that mode? It has it in the EverDrive, whatever that mode is called. I can't think of it
Mode
right.
7.
Mode 7. Okay, you know how the Mega Mans like X2, X3 had the special chips that's built into the EverDrive. So there is no emulation taking place. So the only thing that's different is you don't have the same plastic and cover art as you would if you had the original cards. So if you're a purist, you really should get EverDrives over emulation because there is no emulation on EverDrives. I want to be clear about that because some people have that twisted. They are incorrect if they're saying there's emulation. There is no emulation in EverDrives going on.
Yeah. Now, Ryan, I have a question. When it comes to EverDrives, do you stick with the OG EverDrives, like meaning not the OG, like
Cricks.
yeah, the yep. Do you stick with those, or have you
So
have you tried any
I have
from
not
like
tried like the Chinese ones or the third
AliExpress or
party.
any third party?
I have tried not tried any of those. So the Critics guy, he makes top of the line stuff. I swear by a company called Stone Age Gamer. If any of
Yes.
you guys have used them, you know how good their customer service is. I'll give you an example why too. I bought a Turbo EverDrive from them that was produced by Crix. It was DOA. It did not work right from the start. They immediately sent me another one even before they got theirs back that I shipped. Unbelievable customer service. They make special translucent carts for the EverDrives. They supply them custom labels. So they are like the go-to place, in my opinion, even though I'm not sponsored by them. I swear by Stone Age Gamer. Got great prices there too. And the ones I have the EverDrive N8. I have the Super Mega Drive for Genesis. And I have the Super Nintendo one and the Turbo EverDrive. So I swear by those. I haven't had any problems with them. It's super easy to load up all the ROMs on an SD card. It shows up in the library as soon as you boot it up. And it does feel great playing on the original console with the original controller. No emulation is happening. All the chips are just like they would be in the actual carts, playing the game exactly as the ROM should be played. No emulation at all. So that is for the
Yeah.
purists too. The EverDrives.
Yes. Well, that's the route that I'm going. Like I have, although I have my pies and stuff, I have OG consoles, but I am going with the EverDrive route. Uh, because I do want to be able to play on OG hardware. Uh, but again, some of the prices on these games, nah, I'm gonna emulate them. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Now let's talk about something that used to be used to be a hot item for a very long time. It was kind of like a collector's holy grail of systems. And that's the Retron systems by Hyperkin. What are your thoughts on those? And the most popular of them all, the Retron 5. Because it's my understanding that the Retron 5 played actual cartridges, but also you could upload ROMs to it too. Or do I have that mistaken?
From what I
I
thought,
have.
if
Go
you
ahead.
plug an original cart in a Retron, doesn't that use emulation though?
I believe it does.
Yeah.
So I have one. I have a Retron 5. Um, what I believe it does is um it actually loads the game onto the Retron 5. You know, it like almost copies the game onto the Retron 5, which is kind of weird. Um, it does use emulation. It's cool that you can play. Obviously, hence the name different 5 different consoles. Um, I I've been I've been told, but I don't know if this is a fact, that you can get patches for like Famicom games, and it'll translate them for you, you know, which is like a plus. Um, yeah, I know for a fact that a lot of not streamers, a lot of YouTubers get their game capture through Retron 5s because they're able to use an original cartridge through HD because it has HD and HDMI out, you know?
Does yours have death grip? Because a lot of the originals, it's very hard to pull the card out once you put it in.
That's one of the cons. Definitely a con. It does have death grips. It does. And as far as being able to load ROMs to it, I I've 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 seen a video or two on that zombie, but so I believe that you're correct. I believe that you can. It does have an SD slot in the back,
Mm-hmm.
so I just haven't tried it yet.
Another console like that is the Retro Freak, which you can also not sponsored or built by Freak of Four, by the way. The Retro Freak totally did. But yeah, that is a console you can also load an SD in and play ROMs right off the SD, which is pretty cool. Along with also playing obviously the original cards too on there.
Yeah, J Chip makes another point. Like the controller to the Retron 5 sucks immensely, huge. Um, but it's definitely one of the worst controllers ever made. EC Myers, definitely. After the N64.
Yeah, I would have to
Um,
argue that's one of the worst too.
yeah. It, but one of the cons is that you can. I mean, one of the pros is you can plug in original controllers. You can plug in uh, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and I believe. Hold on, I have it right behind me. Um, so this thing plays. Oh crap! I got this on trade, by the way. For I traded Chris James T85. I can't remember what we traded for, but it has Genesis, SNES, NES, Famicom, and then Game Boy. Now I have to see whether it's Game Boy or GBA. I have no clue. I'm gonna try it out right now. I have a cartridge right here.
And the theme of the night really is there's so many ways to play. Isn't that what's great though? You know
There,
what no matter where your budget is, even if your budget is $0, you can throw the emulators on your PC. That is the big pro here, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, see,
So many ways to play.
that's another thing that we kind of scratched the surface on, and that's going back to the original method, which was emulation on a PC. You know,
Yeah.
PC is
Yeah.
supposed to be able to do everything. So
Yes.
why would someone want to go with these other alternatives if their PC can do it?
I mean, some of these. Well, there's this emulator, or there's this called, I believe it's called CoinOps, which is sort of like a sort of like an emulation station, but for your PC, you
Mhm.
know. And I believe that runs all the way up to like GameCube and PS2, all that type of stuff. I just never really uh, gotten into it because I'd have to make sure that the hardware that I have would be able to support it. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest limitations for people running some of these games on PC, other than like, again, 8-bit or 16-bit. Um, it's all about limitations of your hardware as far as emulation.
I kind of got into that the last podcast, just saying that, you know, for me, I like to keep my gaming separate from my PC, kind of like separating church and state. That's just the way I like to do it. Uh, you know, because I just find it takes kind of the fun out of, like, I like to do my browsing on my PC, and I like to do my gaming in my game room. I like to split up stuff. You know, I understand that that's great. You can do everything on just one thing on the PC. For some people, that's great. But for me,
Yeah.
I like to do my gaming on the couch. I like to look at a TV, and I like to have my consoles. That's just the way I like to do it. But everybody has their own taste on how they like to do it. And there's nothing wrong with emulating on a PC. It's how we used to do it back in the day. You know?
Mhm.
Yeah, I also love the fact that even though you're playing like on a big screen TV, let's say you're feeling super retro that day, you could throw on some scan lines if you want, you know?
Yeah.
No one's gonna say anything. I mean, people hate scan lines though. I mean, I don't mind them. I don't mind them
I
personally.
love scan lines on a good arcade beat 'em up, like a Final Fight. Scan lines look great on that. I don't know, something
Yeah,
about it. I like how
yeah.
it looks.
All of my arcade one-ups have scan lines on them.
Did it come that way, or was it optional?
No, you can go through the settings and just change it.
So, kind of playing devil's advocate here. Um, if a computer can do all this, why not just invest into a top-notch gaming PC? Why even bother getting some of the devices that we've talked about?
Oh man.
Like,
Um,
let's put it up to that type of debate here.
so I was gonna go that route pre-COVID, but now, uh, post-COVID, no way. I mean, some of these game cards, yeah, and some of these PCs prices are just through the roof.
Yeah.
Unless you know someone who can help you piece one together, you know. But again, being able to find the right prices and nowadays is insane.
Well, I really like
that
the
applies to
retro. Sorry, what
I
were you
mean,
saying?
like I said, it applies to anything. Like look at the prices. Who thought that a $40 retro Pi, I mean, a $40 Raspberry Pi would be going upwards to like 150 bucks.
Well, let me give you an example too. Like if you're using a PC just to game, like you boot it up with like what do they call that click wheel or whatever, so it boots right into like an arcade template kind
Yeah,
of scroll wheel for the games. That's one thing because
I
it's
think
because I'm
CoinOps
that's
is
a
like
great
that.
aesthetic. But
I believe
I think there's
CoinOps is
something to
like
be
that.
said. What's that?
No, I believe CoinOps is like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
So
like an emulation station front end.
yeah, so when you power it up, it boots right into that, and it feels like a gaming machine, you know. But what I mean is like when you have a PC and you're clicking into each emulator program, it's very. I think it's a shit experience, you know. And that's the thing I like about the Pi. You know, you put on the Pi, the retro Pi menu scrolling with the video snaps is beautiful, and it just makes you want to play. It makes you want to try new games. You know, when I back in the day, I would click into an emulator program. It'd feel like I'm about to make a fucking Microsoft Excel tax return or some shit. You know what I mean? It was just gross. Like it didn't make me want to game. Like it could do it, but it didn't make me want to do it. You know, it's like when I scroll through that pie in the beautiful snaps in the library, and I see the gameplay, and I see the the cover art, and I see all that. It just makes me want to play and try new stuff. Like I said, Edwin says you can install the coin ops so it boots right into that. But a lot
Yeah.
of people are going to want to be able to do other stuff on the PC, browse, edit videos.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what turns me off about it all in just a PC.
And again, like if you're playing it on a PC, you're probably limited to uh whatever screen size you're playing on, which will probably be like maybe 30-inch tops versus playing in your living room or your game room on like a 50-inch or a 70-inch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I've gone ahead and swapped the videos out here. So Edwin, you want to give us a little bit of description of what's going on?
Okay, so this is an oldie. Okay. No, this is fine. This is fine. So this is I am reviewing an image from Wolfenose, I believe. Wolfenose, he's one of these people who makes these images and pumps them out to the public again for free. Um, so I'm basically scrolling through the UI, through the user interface, and showcasing each console and how many games are in each folder. Um, Again, these uh, this is running on a Raspberry Pi 4. It's running on a program called Emulation Station, and it's heavily modifiable. I don't even know if that's a word. I just probably made it up. But you can modify the shit out of it, meaning you can change the user interface. You can um, you can add videos to it as far as like when you boot it up. If you wanted to boot up with like a video that you specifically uh, wanted to boot up to, it'll do that. Yeah, this is an amazing piece of hardware. It just sucks that it's just a little bit pricey at the moment. But once these prices start to go down, I highly suggest that you guys get your hands on Raspberry Pi. Um, Man, hopefully I could get into some gameplay, but again, I'm probably just going through the menu here, showcasing how many games are on each folder. Um, yeah, it's amazing. Like the fact that I can play. Um, so some of these images are based on how many gigs um are on the SD card. So this image that I'm probably reviewing at the moment right there, it's probably a 128 or a 256 gig. But there's some images out there that go all the way up to a terabyte, you know. Um, uh, Wait, what am I checking out here? The fact that I can play um so many different consoles on one device, again, pro. Um, I've been able to beat so many arcade games that as a kid I spent so many quarters in. Um, it's insane. So here I'm running a Dreamcast as you can see. This is at the very early stages of when the Pi came out. When the Pi 4 came out, there was very little support for gameplay. They were still focusing mainly on like the Pi 3. So as you can see, it's very laggy. But in comparison to some of the images that are out there now, oh man, it runs smooth as butter. I'm running here Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Oh yeah, it runs beautiful now. The only games I can tell you don't run that good, and they're kind of outdated anyways at this point, is some of the sports games. Because like you got like an NBA 2K3 or whatever, right? You had a whole team of sprites on the screen. It struggles a little bit with that. There's not many other
Yeah.
games that I've had struggle though on the Dreamcast and the Pi 4. Racing games work phenomenal.
Well, I don't know if you experienced this, Ryan. One of the cons on of having like all of these games at your fingertips is um, scrolling through games and not being able to pick one to play. Just having way too many options is not a good thing, in my opinion. You know.
But I'll tell you what, Edwin. Like, okay, I have almost every console except hooked up in my game room to be able to stream, except PS5 and except the Series X. I
Yeah.
have from the last generation everything before it, and I'll be goddamn if I don't have the most fun probably when I stream that fucking Pi 4, man, because I'm jumping from arcade to NES. I'm jumping to Super Nintendo to Genesis. I'm jumping to Dreamcast, Sega CD, whatever. And it's just so fun. And somebody will call out a game and chat, and I can play it within 5 seconds. Get there. It's
No,
it's I
oh,
can't say how I can't even dictate how fun it is. It's so fun.
it's a streamer's dream. It's a streamer's dream to be able
Yeah.
to float, to seamlessly switch games just at the snap of fingertips. You know. But when you're not streaming and when you're just playing at home by yourself, it's almost like I find myself having like a Netflix moment where I'm scrolling through the menu more than I spend more time trying to find a movie than I spend more time actually watching the movie, you know?
You know what? The ones I find I stick with more lately, MAME arcade, because I can keep putting quarters in.
Oh
It's
yeah.
so annoying, Yeah, you can save state. I know that, but on the Pi, but it's so. What's the word? Soul crushing sometimes when you spend like 45 minutes and get a game over and have to start right over, unlike an NES game. And yeah, it makes you want to go back and be competitive and keep trying, but that's the thing about arcade. You can keep putting quarters until you see it to the end and go through the whole fucking game. And yeah, you
Yeah.
could say, okay, Ryan, but there's cheats. You could do Game Genie on. It's a little bit finicky though when you start doing that on some of the older systems. So I really find myself when I do play arcade on stream, I do sometimes go all the way to the end and finish that whole
Like,
game to the end credits.
even so, speaking of arcade, um, on the Pi, you're even able to play light gun games. You know,
Right.
if you have the proper equipment, you're able to even play light gun games on it. So all those quarters that you spent like on Terminator at the movie theaters or Lethal Enforcers, you could play those on the Pi. You could use a this USB uh this USB sensor bar called the May Flash, and you can program a Wii remote, and you're good to go. Now it may take you a YouTube video or two to try to set it up, but it's doable. What's up, Ashley?
See, this is why I wonder why make the jump to anything but a PC for emulation if you can play a lot of these formats that some devices can't, whether it's just the tech ability or the program you use to run the emulation. If I want to be able to play some of these classic arcade games and everything else in between, why not just stick to a gaming PC?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, my only qualm with that I can think of is if you're a guy who does a lot of, say you do like a lot of video editing, a lot of browsing, and a lot of other things on that PC. You don't just game on it. Because Lit was saying you could just hook the fucking thing right up to your flat screen with HDMI out. Yeah, but are you gonna
Well,
like
like
say you're on your couch like me? Are you gonna want to do your browsing through the PC on your TV? You're not gonna want to do that. You're gonna want a more traditional. Most of the time, you're gonna want a more traditional desk setup with your PC, your monitor, and your keyboard in a desk chair to be doing that kind of stuff, browsing. But there may be some people that want to sit on their couch and browse on the TV. I'm just saying that's what turns me off about this, about the aesthetics of it.
Mm-hmm.
I like to keep it separate. I have an office in my house. I do my browsing and video editing on, and I game separate. But there's no reason I couldn't game on that. But I like to keep it separate. Some people might not want to do that. I just think it's a better experience on the Pi. Now, say you had a second computer, like yeah, then make that your gaming powerhouse, and use your other one to browse and video edit. But it's all personal taste. There's so many ways to game. That's the theme of the night. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many ways to game. That's what emulation allows you.
Right.
now, how much do you think a PC would run you, um, zombie?
I mean, a basic desktop or a laptop would, I would imagine, be in like the range of like what, $400 maybe, 500
Okay,
for like a decent
yeah,
one.
for a decent one, not bad.
Now if you're going to start adding higher performance, parts and whatnot, if you're going for a fully customizable approach, I've seen setups in the thousands based on what the users actually put in there. And that becomes a matter of glamour versus capability. you want it to look cool rather than, oh yeah, it can handle this type of emulation and whatnot.
Yeah.
Um, but I also know that you really have to know your tech stuff. You really have to know your parts if you want to be able to fully customize uh, your game playing ability and your streaming ability all at the same time. EC Myers just mentioned that just a moment ago. Some computers can't handle
Yeah.
emulating and streaming at the same time,
I,
and that's true.
I was just reading that.
Yep.
How is the input lag on the Pi? I've I've honestly I I don't know. Maybe I'm not that big of a gamer to say that I don't experience any lag, but honestly, I don't experience any lag. I mean, unless I'm streaming and I'm not looking at the right screen, you
Mm-hmm.
know? If I'm looking at the computer screen as opposed to my TV monitor, then yeah, there's going to be a lag. But I don't see any lag whatsoever. Um, at times you just may see like some stuttering and like some tearing, some screen tearing, but lag, uh, no.
And where does
But
that?
as far as go ahead, zombie.
I was gonna ask, where does that lag come from? Is it the ROM itself? Is it the emulation program? Is it the tech of whatever you're streaming on? Where does that lag come from?
It could be a a factor of things. It could be either the ROM, it could be either the emulator itself, you know. Um, as far as the hardware, I'm not sure. Maybe if you're running like some type of like Retron 5, because I believe EC Myers said that it's a lag how on the Retron 5. So it could come from maybe the hardware in some cases.
Because I think back of when I used to play ROMs on my roommate's computer, and I can't really say I experienced lag with that. The only thing I would probably come across is just a damaged ROM, one we couldn't boot up. Um,
Yeah, or you got to a certain spot and it wouldn't progress.
mm-hmm.
You know, you get stuck. Yeah,
And I could
I've
argue that that
encountered.
was something you would experience with physical media too, because we have had games, crash on us before. We've had games just freeze up entirely and there goes your progress. So, yeah, I would say that's probably one of the more universal things across all the different types of formatting and playing is just the capability of crashing. Now, the whole lag debate, we've all experienced that for the most part, at least on some of the devices we run or the software that we run. So I
Right.
can attest to that is something that definitely happens. And it is noticeable with specific games, especially when you know them well enough to know that something's a little bit off with your input. Um, Now, one thing that we've kind of touched on the surface a little bit too, but it's been very sporadic, and that's the uh, the portability and obviously the space saving that comes with using anything but OG hardware. And I guess that's also where that can be a pro for a majority of people with little to no space for gaming, but it can be a con for somebody who loves having their physical media.
Also, a spaghetti mess, right? How many times have you
Oh, the
looked
cord.
behind Oh my god! And you know, it's like when Clark
fire
Griswold was
hazard.
unraveling the Christmas tree lights.
Fire hazard.
I've never
No,
seen
definitely.
I've never seen, a system become a fire hazard, and I hope to God I never do. Um, but is that something that, I mean, overheating, that can happen with just about any device, really. But as
Yeah.
far as you're aware, do any of these devices potentially have a fire hazard attached to them?
Well, you know what? That makes me think of how big the AC adapter power bricks were for the NES, the Super Nintendo, the Genesis. They were those big, heavy black bricks. And then somebody could say, "Well, Ryan, the fucking look at the one on the 360. That was a fucking monster, right?" Yeah, true.
Right.
But what I mean is, that did have a AC plug to save space. So what I'm talking about too is the problem you run into. Remember, I was saying how you run out of HDMI inputs, you run out of power inputs. So even if you have a surge protector, those they call them wall warts, right? Those AC adapters hog up so many fucking outlets. Even if you plug one into one, it covers the next two, and then you got to plug another one in, and then it covers the next two. So you have to get some kind of funky surge protector or multiple ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like also when you're not playing the consoles, you probably want to flick them to off because those AC adapters get hot. These are things most people probably don't think of, but you got to think of that kind of stuff. You don't want to leave those power bricks on all year. Like if you
No.
have say people that have like an NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis, all those systems with the old wall warts, you don't want to. Okay, those are 30-year-old adapters at this point.
Yep.
They get hot. If you don't think those get hot, leave that shit on for a week and put your hand on it. It'll be hot to the touch, and that could potentially start a fire. Unlikely, but could. And like I'm saying, the space thing. Now you got to worry about how many. What are you gonna have? Fucking 5 surge protectors hooked up to have it's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I unplugged all of my systems from my CRT. I have this CRT that it's a Trinitron, and it has 8 ports. Well, 9 if you include the coaxial. So it has 4 audio video ports. It has 3 what do you call those? The RGBs. It has 1 HDMI and the
This is also the
coaxial.
2-year anniversary, Edwin, of your hernia surgery from when you brought up the
Oh,
Trinitron up the stairs.
oh, Jesus Christ! Yeah. So at one point, I had 8 consoles plugged into this thing, and I can testify to what Ryan was saying. You touch some of those bricks, and they get pretty hot. So I had to unplug them all, man. I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I can't have a fire just
Right.
because I want the convenience of being able to just plug in a game at any given time. Now I'm all set. Now, do you guys invest in like surge protectors?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or do you guys just go with like the generic ones?
Well, here's the weird thing. My house has it into the fuse box, so there is one on the whole power grid. But I still fucking have them anyway because I had them from before, surge protectors. So
Oh yeah.
there may be one built into my house anyway, my fuse box thing, power grid. But
Yeah.
what do you call it? Transformer? I don't know. I'm spacing right now. What you call it? But I do also have the surge protectors because I had them from before anyways. And you're gonna need those outlet strips because you got a lot of stuff to plug in anyway. So yeah, they're good to have.
I just wish that they made them a little bit more spacier so you can plug in some of those bricks, you know. And I hate the
I've seen
ones that they
some.
make.
I've seen some, Edwin, that are like, okay, it's like a square, but they'll have
Yeah.
on the bottom row they'll have them facing one way. On
Oh
the
no,
top row they'll
I
have them
have one
facing
of those.
another,
Yeah. So
and then they
I
have them
have
in
one
the
of
middle.
those. So
Yeah,
I have one. I have one where one row is just like for regular ones, and then the bottom row is for uh you could plug in 3 bricks on the bottom row.
yeah. Have you guys seen the ones that you can rotate too? You can rotate the orientation of where you plug it. Like you
Oh,
can
the
just
head. Yeah.
yeah, you can rotate where you plug the prongs in. So if you need like you got a brick here and you got a plug there, you can rotate the one another direction. They got all kinds of stuff like that now, you know.
Yeah.
So
The
since
good
we
thing
got like
about
10 minutes to go,
uh,
like where do we see emulation going in the future? I mean, because we're one pie away, Edwin, from maybe getting PS2 gameplay here. It might be able to start handling some of the PS2 games if the next pie is powerful enough. You never know, or maybe the one after that will be. So I mean, where do we see it? Where do we see it heading?
I mean, look at what Microsoft did. Microsoft allowed you to pay, what was it, $10, $20 for their developer. Um, I forgot what it was. Uh,
Yeah,
they give you like a developer key or something, and you can mod your Xbox Series X.
it's awesome.
To, yeah, I mean, so emulation's not going anywhere,
No,
and the way that I see it, it's gaming preservation, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, as I totally agree. We're one pie away from seeing PS2. Um, and I'm super excited. I'm super excited to see what some of this emulation. I mean, Jesus Christ, I can emulate uh GameCube right now. Um, I can emulate Saturn. There's so much stuff that I can do. Now, I wanna get into the PS3 territory. You know, I want to get into the Switch territory. I can't wait. I really can't wait.
yeah.
Oh, for all this stuff.
Now, what makes modding a Wii or a Wii U one of the best system options for running emulation off of?
So, um, a Wii is a great option to go with. Number one, you can obviously run Wii games. Duh. Number two, if you have the right Wii, which is the Wii with the GameCube ports, you can obviously play GameCube games on it. You know. Um, I mean, as far as a con, shit. Uh, I I love the fact that I can plug in. Well, there was this thing called USB Loader X or whatever. There was this thing that was installed into the Wii that allowed you to load games through like your hard drive. So let's say an example. Let's say if you had ROMs on your hard drive and you put in a Wii game, your Wii would automatically recognize that you didn't have that game in your library, and it would ask you if you would want to rip it, and it would rip it automatically to your hard drive. So you could build up your library that way, you know, um, which was amazing. So back then, you'd be able to go to like, let's say, a Blockbuster or a Hollywood Video, or even your coworkers or your friends, and say, "Hey, let me borrow your Wii games," and just pop them in your Wii and just build up your library that way. Now the Wii U, um, obviously that's a bit different. Um, you lose being able to play GameCube games on it, but you can. I mean, you lose the ability to play physical GameCube games on it, but you can still play Wii games on it because it's backwards compatible with the Wii. Um, but if you mod it, you can play with GameCube games on it through like a hard drive. So that's a plus. Um,
I just want to say too, are we all in agreement? Well, let me ask you this: are we all in agreement that since this is a pros and cons, I would say that there's way more pros than cons to emulation. I would say maybe it's like an 80-20, a 70-30.
Mm-hmm.
Like as far as good outweighing the bad. Like we mentioned, we mentioned issues. One of the things we didn't mention, I can't believe we haven't mentioned this. The sound. Okay, usually, say you had the original hardware on one screen and the emulation on another. Okay, I usually can't tell the difference in the video of the game a lot of times or the sprites, but I can hear the difference in the sound. Okay, I'll give you an example. Golden Axe. When I play that on Genesis, on the actual hardware on a Genesis, it sounds great. Something funky fucking happens when I play that on a Pi, or I noticed something with the emulation and that the sound's a little funky. It don't sound right. So a lot of times, I don't know. For me, Edwin, do you notice that sometimes when the sound's a little funky in some
no,
of the game
definitely, I
emulation,
agree.
that's a
So,
big con.
not only that, sometimes the colors may be off.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know. Um, yeah, it. I totally agree, Ryan.
Yeah, but I do think the pros outweigh the cons, so I think that's important to
No,
say.
I I I believe it's 70-30. I believe so. But that's just me. I'm a huge proponent for emulation. I mean, again, I try to share out as much info on RetroPie with people in the community as much as I can.
And I get the argument from the purists too, because there's a lot of purists out there. But I think it's unnecessary. Some of the I'll see it even on Twitter. Like people will just be like, "You're not a real gamer unless it's on a CRT, man, with the original controller, with the original console, man, with the original cart, with the original KB sticker on the back, with the original fucking you know." So I think it gets a little. Let's relax a little bit, right? In the community, can we relax a little bit? Take a chill pill with that kind of stuff. Let's enjoy gaming for what it is. It's an escape from reality. It's fun, something to play with your friends. Let's not get into emulation shaming, right? You're not a real gamer if you emulate, man. You ain't a
Right.
real gamer, bro. I mean, dude, I see that shit on. I follow a lot of people on Twitter. I see that. I'm not gonna name any names, but I see it from a lot of people. It's unnecessary, dude. And I see it from both angles. Because I have the original carts too. I have the original consoles, but I also emulate. I see it from both sides. It's nonsense. Shaming people for emulation. It's fucking nonsense. I'm sorry.
The king of OG gaming, baby.
Yeah, I would agree that there's no reason to shame anybody who decides to use ROMs in any way because for being in the collecting scene as far back as my very first NES game, uh, there's just there's just some titles out there that a person may never ever own physically. Now you can always go the route of getting a repro cart. We've mentioned that before. Buying repros isn't exactly a bad thing either. If you prefer to at least have some physical cart in your library, then more power to you. I mean, I buy repros as long as I know they're repros and they're priced accordingly. Like somebody's not trying to pull a fast one on me. So again, I see both pro and con with both of them. I'm still going to collect as much physical media as I can, but I think filling in the collections with ROMs for various titles that you may never see in the wild or never be able to pay for, that's a definite plus too. And repros are a good alternative for people who want to have those gaps filled in their collections with some type of physical media. I'm not against that either. I think that definitely has a big edge as well when it comes to emulating and trying to get the real carts. Now, I don't know why there seems to be this sort of unnecessary antagonism for being somebody who plays on ROMs versus OG hardware, because one of the risks with using OG hardware is sometimes those parts are very expensive to replace or are irreplaceable depending upon what the console is. And
Some
then
of these consoles aren't going to last that long.
yeah, and
One
then
of the
you're
things
just
that
left with a
turns me off,
paperweight.
like one of the things that's always turned me off collecting is, okay, I think most of us here we're fussy about our condition, right? It gets so hard, man, to find a non-yellowed Super Nintendo. How many do you find? And yes, you can reverse it, but it's a pain in the fucking ass. And
Also,
sometimes it's like you want just an alternative to, because like I've come across, so I go so far as to, I found the one chip variant of the Super Nintendo, and I like that. It's a little bit crisper on the sprites. So I'm into that crazy camp where I got the one chips. But finding those not discolored, it's a pain in the ass sometimes. And if you're a conditioned person like that, it's hard. It's hard finding the NESs that aren't yellowed. Genesis you can find all day because they stay looking crisp. But you know what I mean? It gets the condition on stuff. So much stuff is beat up, you know. And
and
when you're cleaning the old carts, that's a process too. Opening them up with the key, the special bit key, cleaning
right,
those pins, getting them to fire up every time. It is a hassle sometimes doing OG hardware. There are some things you got to do.
right.
You got a gaming beautician that shit, as Zombie knows, as he does.
Yeah.
Yep. Sometimes it takes a little elbow grease, and that too is a buying point for physical collectors. Do you want to take the time to properly restore those as best as possible, or do you just not even care for it at that point?
Well, I'll tell you, for me, Zombie, it makes me, I can't get rid of them now. The
Mm-hmm.
time I spent cleaning those cards, Zombie, so many I can't get. Like, I got rid of 20% of some of the high dollar stuff, but I won't get rid of them. The money doesn't matter to me because the time I spent cleaning those fucking cards, so many hours cleaning those cards, Zombie, and I don't even have that many cards. I only have like 100.
Mm-hmm.
The time I spent cleaning those pins and
He
getting all the
said
dirt off the
only
cards.
100.
Yeah, no, but yeah, but like that 100 took hours of cleaning.
Yes, it
And
does.
it makes me not want to sell them because that's time I spent.
Mm-hmm. I've told people before, whether they've seen my gaming beautician video or not, you really have to have a passion for that. The same way that people have their passions for their emulators and their ROMs. You really have to be invested in what it takes to get that sort of perfection that you're going for. And sometimes when I can use that as a selling point, I definitely try to, because it is going to take a lot of effort and a lot of, product to make that game look like it's worth a couple of $100. And you could be there for hours, for days, sometimes even months, just trying to get that shell or that chip or that label to look brand spanking new. And that too is one of the negatives when it comes to physical collecting. How well do you want to preserve what's in your collection, and how well do you want it to look like? Whereas I don't see anybody really flipping out that much over what's in their retro Pi or anything. I mean, correct me if
No.
I'm wrong.
I mean, yeah. Freaking.
I mean, if your retro Pi, starts to malfunction or anything, like
you can swap the SD, and I mean, you can pull the SD card out and put it in another one.
Mm-hmm.
That's the nice thing.
You don't have to sit there.
If the SD card fails, you will want to have backed up that image.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can just pull it out and put it in another Pi, and it'll run just perfect.
Right. Yeah, it's a simple fix. It's not like you're gonna spend hours touching it up with like Goo Gone and alcohol and all the other various products that we those of us in restoration tend to tinker with to get that shine back in there. But what I find hilarious is to avoid having to restore a lot of those shells, people are creating artificial markets for it and saying, well, if this SNES yellowed, it means it's one of the original launch systems, so therefore it's worth more money.
What?
Yeah.
What?
It's crazy.
So one thing that I find, I just can't spend the money on what I'm seeing. Okay, these look cool. I'm sure you guys have seen these on Twitter. The translucent shells they got now for the aftermarket shells, you can swap.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're $100.
Yep, I don't agree with that price point at all.
That's fuck. Yeah. No, I'm not gonna spend that. I mean, they look freaking cool, like as a one-off, like visually appealing. But yeah, I'll stick to just the original shell then. $100, man.
Yeah, it kind of goes with the whole like Play It Loud Game Boy series where we had the clear ones. Like that's kind of neat and all if you like to look at that, if you like to look at the innards of it. But
yeah,
$100 for a replacement shell, no, I don't agree with that. I have an SNES that desperately needs a new shell, and what's funny is when I bought it, I didn't even, I inspected the system, but I didn't look at the one place where the damage is. The one time I don't look there. And the system plays fine, but I want a replacement shell for it, whether it's one of those clear ones or another SNES that doesn't work no matter what you do with it. But I'm not going to pay that outrageous price for it. Hell no. I'll wait till that goes on clearance or a more cheaper and cost-effective model pops up.
Was it like the launch model, Zombie?
No, it's just that whoever owned it did a... they did probably one of the most ghettoest things ever to keep it running. And again, I still own it. I'm glad it's in the collection. I wish I had inspected it thoroughly, but it definitely needs a replacement shell. Not to run, but aesthetically it looks ugly the way that it is right now. And it's not something that I can fix, unfortunately. It would require a completely new shell for it to look good. So I guess that too is one of the cons of physical media collecting, is having to do that maintenance, dusting it, wiping them down, alcoholing the chip portions, making sure that everything is fully functional before you put it back in its box or plastic case. I don't think the sensitivity is there much like there is with the Raspberry Pis and the USB, or not the USB, the SD cards and whatnot, but you definitely can end up with something that just freezes on you or just shuts out completely no matter what you do with it. Like,
oh yeah, I had an official Samsung SD die in my Switch.
Ugh.
And I had to load all those re-download all the games again to another one. It's not fun. It's not a fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
They fail. The SDs fail. The micro SDs sometimes.
Are they just that sensitive to corruption, or?
I have no idea why it failed, and I'm always careful about it. I close the game, I shut the system down, you know,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. You close the software before you eject the Switch game. You got to be careful, all that kind of stuff. That's why I'm saying it's funny for a Switch, a kid's system. There's some things you can do easily to fuck it up, even as an adult. I'm telling you, these kids
Yeah.
aren't. You know, the kids are ejecting that. I say this to everybody all the time. You know, these kids that are 8 years old are ejecting that Switch SD card game without closing the software first. You bet your ass they are, because it's a kid. It's a kid. They want to get the game out and put the next game in. They're not closing the
Yeah.
software first, and that can corrupt
One,
the data.
one, I got fucked over one time with like a bootleg one. I didn't buy it, so I won't mention any names. But there was one time where someone asked for an image that I had, and I said, "Fine, just send me an SD card, and I'll copy it for you, and I'll mail it out, no problem." So they mailed out the SD card to me. It was 256 gigs. Um, I got it, and I didn't copy the image right away immediately, so it stayed in my room for a couple of days. So I felt kind of bad that I didn't get right to it. So I mailed out mine because I had a backed up image on my laptop. So I mailed out the one that I had, which was my personal one. And I was like, oh, it's fine. I'll just replace it with the one that he mailed out. Um, but when I went to go plug it in, it was fucking bootleg. So it wouldn't work. And I got fucked over. I had to buy me a new 256 gig card, which at the time was probably like $60.
So the SD card was a bootleg, or the ROM?
No, the SD card was
Oh,
a
okay.
bootleg. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, big ouch. I mean, it's all good though. The person, I'm not blaming the person. That's why I'm not mentioning any names. Uh, they bought it online and they mailed it directly to my house.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever they bought it from, um, gave them a bootleg one, and I never mentioned it to the person. That's why I'm not mentioning any names. I just took the hit. I just took it to the chin.
Mm-hmm. Well, gents, we are nearing the 2 hour mark. We got about 7 minutes left or so. Any final thoughts, any closing statements on the pro and cons of emulation versus physical media?
Well, I don't like to self-congratulate, but we do got to pat ourselves on the back. Last week was a tough one, modding, very technical topic to discuss. This was another technical topic to discuss, a lot of things to cover. I think we did it. I really think we covered everything. Um, there's just so many options for everybody out there. That's the good news here. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what your
Yeah.
budget is, there's so many options. PCs,
Uh,
tablets, to Pis, to EverDrives, to
Phones.
yeah.
yeah. Well, for those who came in late to the chat, I'll give like a little brief summary of my pros and cons. So like some of the pros, in my opinion, number one, I listed of course, cost efficiency, being able to uh not spend a crazy amount of money on these games and just buy like a Pi and save a boatload of money. Um, Number two is like having full libraries at your disposal. Um, Number three, you can buy for those who like collect games, physical games. Emulation is a good option. Like you can test the game before you even buy it, so you don't have to. Let's say the game's like 100 or $150, and you've never tried the game out. You've just seen only YouTube videos of it. But with emulation, you can test it out on your own. Um, you can play in HD without any equipment. You get save states. Uh, on some of these minis we talked about, you can get like fast forward and rewind. Um, I think Ryan touched on like getting fan mods and like translations.
Yep.
Yeah, but like some of the cons, which are very little in my opinion, you know, um, you may require some kind of computer skills, unless you get it. I'm I'm talking about like a Pi. Unless you get like a Pi already preloaded. Um, Now, the cons with that is that not all of the games might work. You know, some of these images have 12,000 games, and best believe that they don't have the time to test every single game out. So,
Hmm.
uh, not every single game is going to work. Another con to me is not being able to play with the original controller. So
Yeah.
you're playing different systems with one controller that doesn't apply to all the other consoles.
Yeah.
So, an example, you might be playing like a Super Nintendo game with a Genesis controller, or vice versa. You know, Another con is
What the?
hotkeys, and zombies can testify to that. You know, the hotkeys.
Yep.
If if you don't know which proper buttons you're touching, you can totally mess it up. Mess up the gameplay, I would say, the gameplay experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then last, I would probably say that um, not every emulator works, and sometimes people's expectations they might be a little bit disappointing. So they may be thinking, "Oh, this I can." Um, N64 games are there. They're on the UI. I can see them. They're on the folder, but when they go play it, doesn't really play that well. You
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my pros and cons.
And you may get the occasional screen tearing. You may get the
Yes.
occasional sound difference on some games, but it's not all the time. It's once in a while, and your Pi may freeze, but you can always restart it. It's not broken. Just restart it, and you're back
Okay.
good to go. But listen, your Xbox might freeze too, and you got to restart that damn thing. And that's an actual console. I mean, that's a Microsoft console. Your Sony may glitch out. You got to restart it, right? So that's not doesn't happen with actual consoles too. I mean, what I'm trying to say when I say actual consoles. It's all actual consoles, but made by the brands. You know, so
Yeah, I gotta say that for somebody that collects both the physical media and I because of you guys who have hooked me up with retro pies to do a lot of my streaming and gaming on, I definitely see the pros more with having both than cons because
yeah,
either side is going to have cons to them. Either side is. I think the biggest ones are always going to be price points, accessibility, whether we can find this stuff in online or in the wild, depending upon what you collect, um, and just the convenience factor.
Yes.
Having everything at your disposal, despite how long it takes to kind of surf through things and find what you need, it's just an overall convenience. You know, if I was in my dorm room first year of college again and I didn't have all my physical games with me, I would love something like that. I would have loved a setup that way so that I could be able to play everything that I currently own and things that I didn't. You know, like the old renting days where we could rent a game. If it sucked, it sucked. There goes our weekend. Or, you know, maybe we pick up that one game that actually ends up being a lot of fun. And then we're like, okay, once I'm done renting this, I'm going to go pick it up. So,
Yep.
yeah, I would say based upon what type of gamer you are, what type of collector you are, if any, because you don't have to be a collector to go either way with these, really. Yeah, just look into whatever suits your needs, honestly. And if you would rather just have an ultimate gaming PC, then that's cool too. Whatever works for you. We always tell people, you know, you got to do what works for you, what's best for your budget, and I definitely would agree when it comes to physical media over digital or over ROMs. So yeah, I'd say that you guys have pretty much made this a very good topic for discussion and very enlightening when it comes to pro and con of both of these methods. I think that it's crucial for gamers and collectors to know about this stuff. Now, granted, you guys have mentioned due to chip shortages and all these other outside factors we can't really control, prices and accessibility has gone up. But, you know, in the end, I don't think that should stop anybody from trying if that's what they really want to achieve. And I know that Edwin is like my go-to guy whenever it comes to anything RetroPie, because he's the one that got me into that. He's the one that exposed me to that. So I'm grateful for having everything that he's ever sent me, and, you know, not having to dig through the museum back here trying to find what I need just to be able to stream on time. So
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. You it brings us great content. I can say that.
yeah, you guys get to laugh at me every time I kill switch my own game, or as Lit mentioned, the times that I played with Little Zombie on some games and he kill switched it.
Yeah, definitely.
I really couldn't have done my streams the past 2 years without a Pi, because I chose the request a game. What do you call it? I chose that style of stream where I open it up a lot to just, what do you guys want? You know?
Mhm.
Yes.
And you can't really do that. And I mean, you have to have a massive library to really have all the games at hand that anybody's going to say. Because otherwise, you'd be saying, I don't have that. Oh, I don't have that one. Oh, I don't have that. You know, and it's like,
Well,
it really does allow me to do that kind of a stream, which is sweet.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, you are close to that. You do have a lot of systems. You could just grab every game.
Nah, I don't have the cooler. I don't have a lot of the cooler ones like Edwin is rubbing in my face here with this video, and along with Hector.
But yeah, the other point to that, why I continue to do, why did I never stop doing the request the game thing? Because people pick games a lot of times I haven't played before, and it's a lot of fun, and it's something I get to try out. And they name a game, I'm like, oh, you know what? I've never played that game. Wow. And then I end up enjoying it. And next thing you know, I'm playing that during my own time. So it educates me doing that format, you know, the request the game thing. So
I think I've come to enjoy seeing old arcades again, just because I miss I miss that scene, you know, so much. We talked about like fighting games before, and
yeah,
you know, just being a part of that whole rush again. I miss that a lot. I miss going into arcade. You slap your quarter up there because for some reason everybody respected that and remembered whose quarter was next.
Yeah.
And then you go up there and you're playing like one of the locals that everybody knows, and you're hoping to God he doesn't embarrass you or you kick the shit out of him. Yeah, it was those were definitely the fun times. And whenever I can see a lot of those arcade games being streamed again, it brings me back to a lot of it. Even that shitty Tattoo Assassins, which I know I've asked you to play before. But it's just part of the fun, you know.
You can never fart on the opponent enough in that game.
Oh God, no, you can't. And I know I'm in the minority who actually enjoys Primal Rage across arcades and the
I like it too.
The home ports, but if
you're gonna have to teach me how to eat the civilians eat the cavemen on the ground. I don't know how to do that.
I'll teach you how to do that, and then when you pick Chaos, I'll tell you how to do the Golden Shower.
There you go.
Fatality.
I need to know.
Oh, we got a quick question here near the end of the show. J-Chip asked, back in the day, did people get their asses kicked for rage quitting? Not in my arcades. It was more something that people laughed at you over versus just taking your ass whooping like, a pro. I mean, playing arcade fighters, at least in my area back in the day, was kind of like fighting people in real life. You stood your ground. Whether you got your ass beat or not, you got a lot of respect. So when it came to playing Street Fighter and Killer Instinct, Mortal Kombat, the top fighters of that time period, you would probably be laughed at if you rage quit, but not to the point where, somebody would probably meet you outside in like 5 minutes or whatever. Nah, you just got laughed at.
The pimp was the guy, though, that knew all the fatalities, right? That was the guy, because you'd be watching him like, oh, I've never seen that one. And, you'd just be standing there kind of in awe at how easily how good some of the players were. And I was not one of them, by the way. I'm like the guy that takes 10 minutes to learn 2 fucking fatalities, and I still stink. That's just me. But you would watch that one guy that was the man, and pulling off those fatalities. And it'd be awesome because you'd never seen him before, and you can't look him up on YouTube.
Nope.
So that was the fun back in the day, seeing that.
Yeah, word of mouth. Mm-hmm.
That was part.
Pre-internet.
That was part of the fun was sharing what you knew, or sometimes you could be that one jerk that knows how to do the moves that everybody wants to learn, and you're just like, nah, secret's safe with me, kind of deal. It all just depended. It just depended on. How you were known, what people know you for, like, oh, that's one of the top Sub-Zero players over there, kind of the same word of mouth kind of shit. But it was fun. I miss those times where even if you bragged a little, it wasn't a complete ego trip like I see nowadays. You still got respect for, how good you were, even if you stunk. The gaming scene was totally different. There was more humility, sadly. But nonetheless, all of you guys who stream, who provide us the content, whether it's OG hardware or emulation, can't thank you guys enough. Especially nowadays while I'm working. It sucks I'm not as active as I used to be, but the least thing I can do is share your guys' content. And, hopefully if I have a break in between my routine, I can say, hey guys, what's up? Doing the old work and lurk. Y'all know I'm here. Throw your link in my Discord, send a tweet out, that kind of stuff. Because it's that entertainment that you guys provide that helps with the busy work days too. So can't thank y'all enough for that.
I second that, Zombie.
So...
it's all about spreading the love, spreading the, retweeting out, checking out each of our fellow friends' streams, being there, even if we can only dip in like 5-10 minutes, just to say hi, show some love, show some support.
Exactly, the right way too. I still see how certain people are only getting shouted out nowadays, and that's fine. Just expose your favoritism in doing so, and we're not about that. We're about helping each other out the way we should, and spreading the word out the way that we want to, because we're supposed to be friends, not battling egos. No pee-pee touching here, you know. You know, this isn't a
And respect how everybody chooses to game, whether
Yeah.
it's emulate, whether it's OG hardware, whatever. Let's all just love the games for what they are.
Mm-hmm. And as always, I see that coming through the chat too. Everybody, play the way that you want to, play the way that you enjoy it. I agree wholeheartedly. And if you stand by the right people, then they're gonna give and take just as easily. So, with that being said, I think we've all kind of said our piece on this. I would love to hear more from you guys as well. If you guys have any additional thoughts or questions, feel free to post them once this video is uploaded, or share them in my Discord. We're going to do the after party in just a few moments. I want to thank everybody for being here. Once again, the chat was popping with a lot of questions and answers and opinions, all of which we love. And be sure to share those on the Discord as well if you guys have any topic ideas that you want to discuss with us, and have a chance to be a guest on the show to discuss those topics with us. Feel free to share those in the Discord or comment down below once this video is up. Or you can contact us on Twitter. Most of us are there. Another great way to keep in contact with us and keep those suggestions going. I know at this point I have nothing else to say, but thank you all for being here again. Thank you, our special guest, Edwin.
Yes.
Our master pie chef, baker, whatever you want to call yourself.
Awesome job. Awesome job.
Thanks for stopping in, guys. Thanks for stopping in.
Definitely.
Appreciate the support.
We've got a few channels that are being thrown in the chat tonight, so Lit Gaming will be streaming as soon as we're done here. Be sure to check him out. I believe he said he was running Golden Axe, Revenge of Death Adder. Could be wrong about that. And Victory Leo showing some support to a friend of his as well. Be sure to check out that channel too. With that being established, I am your patient zero, Zombie JLT1.
I am Richard Ryan.
And I'm Quesadilla Padilla.
I'm going to send us off with the usual ending, but just for Edwin, I'm going to do something a little special real quick.
Ooh.
Let me get, going to end that awesome Vectrex stream. That's making me jealous every second I watch. Since we all know how Edwin feels about this series, and given what we just spent the last couple minutes talking about, let's send Edwin off with a good vibe here, and I'll risk my video being interrupted because of this. I don't care.
Oh, man. Awesome. Thank you, Mom. Yeah. Woo.
And look, there's both of us right there on the screen.
Yeah. Oh, man.
How many of you guys went nuts whenever you heard that in the arcades? Come on, that is a legendary attract mode there.
Yeah.
Maybe
Thank you.
maybe that can be a topic too. Top 10 attract modes in our arcades. All right, guys. Be sure to join us in the Discord once we open it up. Thank you all for being here. Y'all enjoy that ending, and we'll see you all next week. Take care, everybody.
Peace. You there, Tom?